Good evening and welcome to Washington Week. Tonight, we'll discuss a book that has enthralled Washington and much of the nation, Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. Joining me are its authors, Jake Tapper, CNN's lead anchor and chief Washington correspondent, and Alex Thompson, a national political correspondent at Axios. Gentlemen, thank you for being here in what is only your third interview of the day. I appreciate it.
But the best.
But the best certainly no. Save the best for the middle. Let's start with, let's jump into the key moment, a key moment in American history, one of the most dramatic moments in American political history, at the debate, co-moderated by you, Jake, June of last year, in which Joe Biden essentially lost the election for the Democrats, perhaps, certainly lost the nomination. I just want you to watch this key moment with me, and we'll talk about it.
We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Jake.
It's painful. It's painful to watch.
You're sitting 15 feet away.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe next to Dana Bash, your co-moderator. What are you thinking at that moment?
I'm thinking, well, what I wrote on the iPad to communicate with the control room is what I was thinking, a very clean version of what I was thinking, which is, holy smokes. That's what I wrote, holy smokes. I couldn't believe it. We had all watched Joe Biden through the years, and we'd watched him becoming elderly. But this was something else. This was addled. This was non-functioning. This was not able to follow his own train of thought. And you know, this isn't just like catching him at the beach and asking him a question when he's not in the right spirit, or not in the right state of mind. This is the debate where he needs to prove his acuity and ability to be president, because so many Americans were worried that he didn't have that ability.
Right, right. You're watching it, I assume.
Yeah, in Atlanta.
And you're you've already been reporting, obviously, on Biden and some of the doubts and worries about Biden. What was going through your mind?
That even though honestly, I thought it was bad, I did not think it was this bad. And it was sort of shocking that they had let him go out on that stage, especially given that so many people around Joe Biden have been around him for so long and say they love him. And the fact that and now we know from our reporting in this book that this was not the first time or even close to the first time that he had acted that way behind closed behind closed doors. And the fact that they let him go out there with the potential that this could happen and let him, you know, in some ways hurt his legacy and embarrass himself on the world stage, I just felt sad.
So is this when you realized that the White House was lying to the public, lying to the media about Joe Biden's condition? Or was this, I'm wondering how you moved cognitively through the stages here. Did you immediately think to yourself, oh my God, I've been lied to? Or, wow, he's having a really bad night?
I thought that they had been misrepresenting his acuity for a little bit then, at that point. And our reporting suggests that he really started to deteriorate in the summer and fall of 2023. I didn't see him all that often, and I didn't know how bad it was, but it seemed odd. In retrospect, I mean, I asked people about it, and I heard what I'm sure you heard, what I'm sure Alex heard, which is he's fine, he's fine, he's fine. He's 81, of course, he's elderly, but he's great. Behind, you know, his decision-making solid, he's great in meetings, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't believe them, but I didn't have any evidence to report that they were lying. When he came out and he could not deliver what any politician should be able to do, a 90-minute debate discussing why you should be elected.
Straightforward questions,
yeah,
actually.
And, I mean, some of the questions were honestly like issues that he should have wanted to talk about and should have been able to talk about brilliantly.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, it wasn't even about, oh my God, I've been lied to. It was, I had the same thought that some Democrats told us, Democrats who worked for Biden told us they had that during that debate, which was, oh my God, who's running the country?
Well, who was running the country?
Well, I just wanted to first add, beginning in April 2023, I'd really started honing in on this issue because of what some people in the White House were saying about their concerns, not necessarily in the moment, but certainly that he could not do a re-election campaign or serve 4 more years.
Right.
And in response to that reporting, the White House said false. They denied it, they denied it, they denied it, and I was hearing otherwise. So I had stopped believing their denials for a while. But in terms of who was running the White House, it's a small group of people that have been around. Some people within the administration called them the Politburo. That's the term we use in the book.
Give us the names of the 3 or 4.
Mike Donnellan, Biden's longtime political liaison. Steve Ricchetti, who was sort of the legislative liaison, plus like a friend. Bruce Reed, at times, depending on his situation with the Biden people, Ron Klain. And then there are some people outside the Politburo that are closer to family, which would be obviously Jill Biden, Hunter Biden, but then Jill's main chief of staff, Anthony Bernal, and sort of his like deputy in some ways, Annie Tomasini, who is often Biden's traveling chief of staff.
And Joe Biden himself also is part of this. Joe Biden is not like, it's not Weekend at Bernie's, right? He has some purchase here. He has some agency, and he's aware of some of what's going on. He might be in denial about it, but he's aware of the fact that they are keeping the cabinet away from him. They are keeping some White House staffers away from him. They are keeping members of Congress away from him. He knows what's
Certainly
going on.
keeping the press.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
It's interesting, and we talked about this on your show a couple of weeks ago when I saw President Trump a few weeks ago. He started by saying, I bet Joe Biden would never do this.
Which is true.
And I took that as, and this is the conversation we had, I took it as, oh man, he never stops talking about Joe Biden. And you took it as, well, that is actually true. And it's true. I've interviewed Donald Trump more than I've interviewed Joe Biden.
I remember during the Biden years, because people don't know that you and I are friends, that you were frustrated. You would interview
constantly.
You had interviewed Obama several times about his presidency. You're a very serious journalist, and you know a lot about foreign policy, and you wanted to talk about this, which was like a section of his job that he really enjoyed and liked talking about, and they wouldn't let you do it.
Well,
it wasn't just about you or the Atlantic either. This is the first president in decades, perhaps actually ever, it's hard to know with going back decades, who never sat for an interview with reporters with the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, or Reuters. Did not do it all 4 years.
So he only did one interview with a national newspaper, and that was on his way out the door with USA Today. That was it.
Yeah. No. And so this brings, and we're getting granular, but this is Washington Week. We're supposed to be granular. Anita Dunn, who is kind of she was the czar of communications in the Biden White House. And I asked Anita periodically for 4 years, and Anita Dunn strung me along for 4 years.
Yep.
Strung a lot of other people along for 4 years. You didn't name her as part of the Politburo.
Well, she was right outside it, though.
Yes, incredibly powerful.
But the question that comes to mind, I think, for a lot of people is, was this group around Biden, who are obviously trying to keep people from understanding how diminished he was, were they lying to themselves, or were they just lying?
I think both.
Yeah, but I think there were honest people that realized that we have one person quote in the book that the interview that Jake did in 2022, that by the next year he was no longer capable of handling that 15-minute interview.
It was a nothing interview that it was a 15-minute interview.
Straightforward question.
Yeah, just like you have like 6 questions or whatever. One's on Putin, one's on people think you're too old. One, I forget what they all were, but I mean it wasn't like a really. This is going to be more in depth than that. But even that, a top aide told us he could not have done that in 2023, 1 year later.
Let me hone in on this. This group of people who were essentially running the country, or at least, I think you use in the book, you talk about Biden as kind of the chairman of the board.
A senior member of the board.
A senior member.
That's not us. That's a cabinet secretary.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
I understand. And by the way, the only people who were kept further away from Biden than the press were the members of the cabinet. Yep. But that's a separate subject. Do these people really believe that he was okay?
I think they believed this.
Did they convince themselves of that?
One, Joe Biden is the only person who has ever beaten Donald Trump. Two, Donald Trump is an existential threat to the country. Three, Joe Biden's the incumbent president, and he has decided he's going to run for re-election. Four, all we have to do is get through Election Day, and then we can figure it out after that.
But then it could be weekend at Bernie's. For all
Yeah,
they care.
or then, yeah, who knows after that.
Number
It was
three
also
is
in their self-interest to believe that. Though.
right.
Yeah,
Number
but
three
Mike
is
Donnelly demands, before he goes over to the Biden campaign in 2024, he demands that they pay him $4 million for that. The campaign chair, the campaign manager, essentially, Jen O'Malley Dillon, was paid $300,000 for running the campaign. $4 million. Biden says, pay him. And they pay him $4 million. So
good business.
I don't know if people out there who donated to the Biden campaign knew that that's where some of their money was going,
Right.
$4 million to Mike Donnelly.
Right. So you use the term, let's go on to this, the cover-up. Define cover-up.
I think that the way that we define cover-up is the Biden that was on that debate stage. It was not the first time that Joe Biden appeared. And over the course of the 9 months preceding it, you had an increasingly hectic efforts to try to hide the extent of the decline from the American people, from reporters, from members of the Democratic Party, from members of their own cabinet.
Literal hiding in a kind of way.
Yeah,
like
yes,
he's not going to go do this, he's not going to go do that.
Right,
Yes.
and we're gonna and we're not gonna let him meet with these cabinet officials, and we're not gonna let him meet with these White House staffers, or we're not gonna, or when he does an event with donors, when he does a fundraiser of just 40 people, we're gonna put a teleprompter in the back of the room so he can speak. Even though that's something that any politician should be able to do without a teleprompter. The cover-up is defined as hiding something bad. That's what's happened. We're not alleging criminality. You're allowed to lie to the American people. That's not a crime. Politicians have been doing that since this country was founded.